So I have the privilege of bringing this panel before you, that some partners for impact you'll notice on the agenda. And so I'm really proud to introduce the panel that we have seated before us. If you look on pages 2 through 4 of your booklet, you'll see more detailed bios of each of the panelists. Dr. Joe did give us a brief introduction of who would be on the panel today. So in the interest of time, I'll allow you to read those bios so that we can dive right in. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. So we've been talking about the vision. We've been talking about what we aspire to see for Black boys and young men here in St. Louis, which for me is both professionally and personally inspiring. And so that's where I want to start the conversation. We're going to frame it about what it inspires and excites us about this vision, and then we're going to talk about how we partner for collective change. And so I will say that I get to see that generational impact because I'm the mother of a 24-year-old Black man and a 4-year-old Black boy, right? So I get to live out the vision and watch how we transform St. Louis to the #1 place and see what that looks like from the experience of my 24-year-old young Black man for my 4-year-old young Black boy when he gets to be that age. So for me, it's exciting, and I'm inspired to be a part of watching that transformation that we will collectively achieve in our region. So I'm going to put it to the panel. What excites you and inspires you about the vision that brings you to the table and to this convening today? And it can be whether personally or in your work. Whomever would like to go.
Good morning. You know, when I came this morning, it was on my way in, I wondered if I'd be out of order by saying that I give honor and praise to God, but we've already had some church going on this morning, so I just keep with the theme to give honor to the Most High God. It becomes a point in time that we as a people cannot ignore as to who we really are, and so I'd like to do that in addition to thanking Dr. Joe for the opportunity to be here this morning, to be gathered with you, because we know and understand it is a privilege as to wherever we land up on any given day, because again, it is God that has made us and not we ourselves. So as we move forward, again, I'm just really excited about the vision that has been put before us to change the lives of young Black men and boys in the St. Louis region. I am a homegrown STL woman, born and raised west to north to central, and so I do have a rounded background as to this particular subject. I had 2 big brothers that had to take a lot of care of me, me being the youngest under them, so I spent a lot of time with them. So I got a chance to hear a lot of boy conversations, and it taught me to be well-rounded in this issue. Unfortunately, one of those brothers of mine, I lost to gun violence. And for the past 40 years, I've had a commitment to change the lives of boys and men in this region that's so very, very needed. So the vision is exciting to me because I have always dedicated some time to doing that. I understand until their lives change, our lives cannot change. This region cannot change. It cannot grow. You cannot exclude a population that is so very, very visible right in front of you. And unfortunately, those things have happened. And so this vision is a new start to the St. Louis area, to the St. Louis region, to get all involved in this very, very important mission. And so, again, my excitement comes from understanding, from knowing, from looking, from serving, to seeing exactly what has been going on in the St. Louis region for our young Black boys and our males, and that's what has me here today.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Ray Clay. I'm with the United Way of Greater St. Louis, and I will tell you that as a homegrown sister as well. We have raised, actually, a son and a daughter. And even though we raised them in Edwardsville, I went to SIUE. I know, right? Undergrad and grad. Then I fell in love and, had to, did that thing. And so we settled. We settled in Edwardsville. But I always worked, commuted, church, everything in St. Louis. And so we knew early on we had to show our children the bigger picture because Edwardsville is very hokey. It's a wonderful place to raise children, but it's very hokey and unrealistic. But this is the deal. So my husband and I got together and said, okay, let's cover the front. So I ran for school board and served 8 years on the school board. My husband was an alderman, so we figured between the two of them, if our kids ever needed anything or if their friends got in some sort of issue or trouble, we were there for them. This is the deal. The same talk my husband had with my son. And, when he was 12, you all are having the same talk today with your kids and your son. And now my son is 35. Pray on him a lot because he is out there at various times. From a regional perspective, the United Way has a very distinct place in the region, and we have access to individuals that are not your usual suspects. And so how we leverage that access in this critical conversation becomes front and center. The landscape has changed, and United Ways across the country have worked real hard to figure out where we stand because we have a policy of being neutral because of all of our stakeholders. You can no longer be neutral. We knew that a few years ago. And so right now we have a strategic plan that boldly states advanced racial equity internally and externally is one of the strategies. It's locked in. So how we show up in that lane is one of the reasons why I'm here today, but I have several co-workers in the room who we intersect the work with, and as we progress in our presentations, they're going to come up because this, what we're doing is regional, and the particular lane that I'm going to talk about intersects with other lanes, and I'm just so pleased and so proud. People who know me know I'm not dramatic, I'm not passionate, I'm a pretty low-key kind of person. I don't show up real big, loud, or anything, but I'm kind of passionate about this initiative that we're going to talk about on a regional basis. So I'll try to stay focused and limit my passion appropriately as we continue. Don't shake your head, Becky. Becky and I have worked together for years, and she knows I am very quiet.
I'm just going to let her keep talking and saying that.
I'm done.
All right.
We'll talk more, but that's why I'm here, because the same talk we're still having today, which means the conditions still exist.
Right.
People didn't ask for the conditions. We haven't done a good job addressing the conditions. Ain't solved the problem yet. I've been United for 35 years, and I tell them we ain't solved the problem yet. With that, Becky.
Well, she's right. Okay, so again, thank you everyone for showing up. It was said earlier, and to Dr. Joe and others, thank you for adding me to this panel and what I can contribute to it. Ethel started by saying she's homegrown. I'm not homegrown, but I've been here 25 years this year. But I will tell you, I do feel a sense of home. I am from Louisiana. But we share a Mississippi River. And so what New Orleans and St. Louis were king. And what went up and down that Mississippi River this is a very familiar place to me. I grew up in rural Louisiana, founded Big Brothers Big Sisters, went to Atlanta, and Atlanta was not Southern. And I came to St. Louis, and they said to me a couple of things. First of all, they're going to ask you where you went to high school. Where you went to school, they're going to mean high school. And I was like, I would know that. And they were like, why would you know that? And I said, that's what they mean in the South. They need to put you in a box. They need to know your pedigree. They need to know who your family is, right? And it's a joke when we say, can your mom make a roux? they need to know who you are. And so I got that. That's exactly, I would have answered Holy Savior Menard Central High School, right? So we know that. So I'm not really homegrown, but I get this home pretty quickly. And they also said, you're going to need to understand that there's this group called Civic Progress. Yeah. And you're going to, you're going to need to get to know them. You're going to need to understand their control and everything. And I was fascinated by that because I was like, you know their names? And they're like, yeah, we know their names. I said, you know their companies? And they're like, yes. I'm like, well, that's not so secretive. There's another whole secret thing going on, and you don't know their names. So I found that to be a fascinating introduction to this home. So I'll just say a couple of things why I'm just wicked excited about this. We were with Dr. Sean Joe last night and Kate Dopage, who is our Chief Program Officer. I think we were still there around 8 o'clock last night, and I said I could keep going all night long because what you showed last night and the promises and the vision is just crazy. I'll just say a couple of other things. I think some of you may know I served on the Ferguson Commission. It was an honor, but it was transformative. I'm proud to say, I'm kind of horrified by it, but I'm also proud to say I've been in this work 31 years. I didn't get some of this. I didn't get what I understand today. That work, the leadership of Starsky Wilson, the whole system thing, I got some of it, but I really didn't get all of it. I grew up in a family, these words just came to me recently, where I've spent my entire life working on the unfortunate, but I'm trying to find my way to the unjust. And what does that look like? So I'm very proud, and I hope you are, of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Eastern Missouri, because this community founded this local affiliate 105 years ago. This community of St. Louis is one of the founding 13 affiliates of the national movement. Your local affiliate of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Eastern Missouri is the 6th largest in the country, and we're not the 6th largest market. So this community turns out in a big, big way. You lead, actually, it's not enough, but you lead in the number of black and brown men and women who are Big Brothers and Big Sisters. 30% are black and brown volunteers, but you know that's not enough, but that's better than anybody else. So I'm going to take it and put that right there. And most significantly, we pushed 8 years ago hard at our national organization to make endurance of relationships the #1 metric. That if you're showing up once or twice or 3 months or 6 months, kind of don't show up. We need endurance. And so we put a stake in the ground. And since we got the stake in the ground, and every year that it's been measured, the St. Louis Big Brothers and Big Sisters, with this community support, has led the nation by far. So the national retention rate for Big Brothers and Big Sisters across the country on a 12-month retention rate is 50%. Your St. Louis agency is always between 80 and 85% that celebrate their 1 year and go into their next year. That's a massive commitment. And so I'm proud, but it's not enough, and it's not good enough, and we've got to figure out the next place. So I'm really excited. I'm just going to, it's not all done, but trying to figure out how do we get better. We have to take on the issue of black boys and race in general. So we are now working with Washington University, turning over all of our research, all of our data to help us understand what are we getting right and what are we getting wrong. We are not having the conversation about the things that we need to have. We need to look totally different going forward. What black boys need in certain areas is very different than any other population, and what girls need. We're just not that sophisticated. We're in the middle of a strategic plan, and we've got to answer all of these questions. But I am absolutely convinced that in 5 years from now, we are going to look radically different as an organization, still keeping greatness, But there's another level of greatness that includes unjust. So thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chris King. I'm the managing editor for the St. Louis American newspaper. And since you're going to be looking at me while I speak, I'd like to apologize for my head. I swim at a highly chlorinated public pool every morning, and I've got gray hair, and it's starting to look like the President of the United States hair, or a clown wig. So, and also I'm cold. I'm a low-income journalist. I had to walk here from off campus. I couldn't afford to park, and I'm just cold. So I can really pinpoint the partnership our newspaper has with HomeGrown STL more than most of these folks. So every Thursday we have a print edition, 70,000 circulation. Every week there's a voice of a black male speaking about changing the narratives for black males in St. Louis. Sean Joe brings these voices to the newspaper, and I complain about the headshots usually and make him get another one. So he does all the work and I do all the complaining. It's a really great partnership. Most people come to the St. Louis American for partnerships and I have to do all the work. He does all the work and I do all the complaining, and we have a really great relationship that way. Also, we are probably going to do more than that in the future, but that's what we're doing now. We also have a website. Those of you who are visiting, it's stlamerican.com. Every Thursday, a column gets posted, and it has a host page, so you can sort of read them all. We started on August 9th, the anniversary of Michael Brown's police killing in Ferguson, and Sean and I came up with the idea the Sunday before the Thursday we published our first column. We met through our spouse, our partners, and once we saw each other, we've been talking without interruption. He's my little brother. I'm about a month or two older than him. He's more distinguished and a heck of a lot smarter, but I'm still the older brother. I don't really have much. I'm a role player at the St. Louis American. Donald M. Suggs is our publisher and executive editor. He hired me as the editorial director, and after working for him about a year, I closed the door in his office and sat down, and I said, can you be the executive editor, and can I be the managing editor? Because I'm just managing your vision. I'm not directing anything, and he accepted his promotion and my demotion. So I'm a role player. I just make the trains run on time, or as close to on time as you can get with no staff, really, and a lot of high expectations. And really, the reason why I'm here is because when Sean suggested the partnership, I was like, yes, it totally fits our mission. Dr. Suggs' newspaper is designed to inform, educate, empower, and we especially learned this last one in 2014, protect the black community in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. So if you're aiming at the black community in St. Louis, our newspaper's right in your way, going to try to stop you from hurting anybody. And I like that job. It's a good job. Somebody has to do it. And we've been working at it pretty hard for a long time. Personally, I studied philosophy here at Washington University. I'm a journalist by accident. I was a rock musician who couldn't make any money playing rock music. So I make even less money doing journalism, but at least the checks come more predictably. But I studied philosophy here, and Sean's project appealed to me as a philosopher, because a philosophy student, because he said, until you turn around the outcomes for young black male in St. Louis, you're throwing away all the other money you're spending on this place. You can unify city and county government. You can do whatever you want to do. You can leap over tall buildings in a single bound. You can build stadiums for sports teams that we don't need. But until you turn around the outcomes of young black males in St. Louis, this is not going to be that proverbial safe place to live, work, and play that they're always telling us about when they want to spend money on anything except improving the outcomes of young black males in St. Louis.
Awesome. Thank you. So some of you have touched on this a little bit more, but I want to do a little deeper dive about how your work specifically impacts black boys and young men.
Okay, let me start. So, in 2016, I noticed, I came to a Homegrown Summit, and then the next week, there was another summit with my now friend, Dr. Johnson, at UMSL around black male success. And, you know, I did that United Way thing. When you've been in United Way for so long, you do this thing. It's like, darn, how many of these am I going to go to in the course of a month, 2 months? I just noticed a pattern of initiatives around black male success. And so I just said, I wonder if they've all been in a room together. And so I just kind of went on the website and started looking at all the universities and pulling people's names. It ended up in this round table in March of 2017, and everybody showed up. And these were people from 13 area colleges and universities, Lindenwood, all the way from Lindenwood in St. Charles to SIUE in Edwardsville. And you put that kind of passion in a room with someone like a Rebecca Bennett, and you come up with some things. I kept them for 5 hours, and then we reconvened, and they developed a purpose and a vision and a name. And so the long name is the Regional Consortium of Higher Education Initiatives Supporting Black Male Success. Now, they call themselves a consortium. So we began to meet on a quarterly basis to kind of carve out who we wanted to be, why we wanted to be in this space, and understand this is just one space, because we knew that the data around black male success and the narrative around black males really needed to be looked at in the region. And so me knowing what I know in terms of United Way, you know, we have 2 really, really big pieces of work that are trying to develop cradle to career kinds of pathways for people to be like ready by 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, just be ready to be a contributing, productive citizen. That's ready by 21. We do it in the East Side called East Side Aligned. We have a labor department that is kicking butt right now in terms of building on-ramps to diversity in the union and the labor dialogue. And so we have a vested interest in a regional look. And so this is just one on-ramp. But they developed a name, and so we developed a purpose, and the purpose is to advance the educational, professional, and social achievement of college-age black men in the St. Louis region, and to increase St. Louis-based colleges and universities' capacity to educate and graduate black male students. So by the end of the year, they had come up with all of the internal, the community, the campus levers that needed to be pushed and pulled and turned in order to facilitate improved success. Because the first thing we asked for was, y'all go back to your institutions and collect data on recruitment, retention, and graduation of black males. That in itself was an exercise. It took over a year for some people to do that, just because of the politics of the university and because the data is not really pretty. And so midway in this, we learned of another, and this is radical collaboration. And so St. Louis. We learned of another initiative that was also university-based, coming out of St. Louis University around black male excellence. And so 2 different lanes for the same thing. I'm like, And we were having the same people at the table. So I, picked up the phone and said, come on, let's go break bread, brother Dr. Richard Marks. I know he's in the room. And so me and Dr. Richard Marks went, and we broke bread, and we married that vision. And so we combined that group last year, radical collaboration, and that even increased the capacity and the passion in the room. And when we said, do you really want to keep going? They said, this is our conduct. We got to keep going. So they are still meeting. Let's talk about deliverables. This last weekend, they had their first black male, they have 2 work groups. The Strategic Partnership Work Group, which is the on-ramp for this homegrown. We are aligning, what we're doing now is working to align the initiative straight with Dr. Joe as it relates to higher education. And that's a conversation that we're beginning to have on every campus, because you're talking about sharing data, you're talking about doing things they've never done before. And we have a meeting, we have to go with our consortium member to convince SIUE why they have to be in this discussion. You got to be you are bookend. You got to be in the discussion, because your people come into St. Louis. Our people come into your campus, and really they have the highest population of black male students around outside of Harris Stowe, and they're really doing some good things over there. But one of the things we also do is best practices. And so I do have a 1-pager if anyone is interested in the consortium and what they do, but we married those visions, and they had black male excellence conference this past Saturday. It was called Hard in the Paint. They built it because Waka Flocka Flame was coming in anyway. I don't know about Waka Flocka, but they knew about Waka Flocka. And so we built a conference on top of that. 93 brothers came from 13 institutions to that conference, first time. And we melted. We just melted because they were well-dressed, they leaned in. I actually got put out of a session. I went into a session, and it was like, Ms. Redcliffe, we talking about some things in here that, I said, okay, your space. I went into another session, but it was just invigorating to see the young brothers show up. And so that's just one of the deliverables. I mean, we are out of the gate. Now we meet monthly, which also is it's hard, but we're meeting monthly. We got people working on branding, and I have just a vision for this group, and they have a vision for themselves that I'm trying to keep up with now. So it is regional. Right now, the strategic part is the alignment right up under homegrown so that we can take the data we have and the male students that these colleges and universities are touching and make them a part of the pilot catchment. But we also are in the process of doing what's necessary to get all the colleges to buy into that kind of radical collaboration. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I want to just briefly just try to give you an overview, demographics, visions, models, and results. So from a demographic, daily, we are serving 1,800 young people between the ages of 5 and 25. A lot of people don't know we go to the age 25. That means 1,800 little brothers and little sisters, 1,800 volunteers, 1,800 families, and we do full wraparound services with our families. So on any given afternoon, 6,000 people are in play daily with us. That's not annual serve, that's daily census. But we also have 1,000 young people waiting on our waiting list. The demographic on both of those numbers is 85% of the young people that we serve are black or brown. 75% of them are living in households making less than $20,000 a year. The waiting list is 1,000. 80% of them are black or brown boys waiting today, right now, for a big brother or a big sister to come side by side with them. We turn away 100 to 150 boys every month to get on that waiting list because putting 5,000 boys on a waiting list doesn't mean they're going to get service. It is a broken promise to a mom who is calling because children come to us because a parent picks up the telephone and calls and says, my child needs help. And every child that is put on the list that we go to their home, meet them where they are, and we talk independently to every child to make sure they want to beg. So 100% of our work is volunteer. The parent volunteers, the child volunteers, the volunteer volunteers. But we have 1,000 kids waiting. That is our starting point. That is our challenge. Our vision in 2014, this agency turned 100 years old. We did not have a party. Everyone said, are you going to have a party and a celebration? I was like, I don't have time to spend money on a party, and it's not going to make any difference to what the problem is. But we decided and we announced in January 2014 on our centennial that we would move to that age 25. We were fist bumping at 18 in high school graduation. I don't need to tell y'all why 18 to 25 is a big deal. And we decided to stay. We're the first agency in the country to do that. And 15 of the largest agencies in the country now are following St. Louis' lead. To everything everyone said St. Louis is leading, I know it is tough and we can beat ourselves up, but we are making progress. So we're now staying to age 25. This was, and it fit right in with that generational promise that people have been talking about. We made that generational promise in January of 14. Our model of big brothers and big sisters is what you know. It is matching one big brother with one little brother, trying to keep them together for as long as we possibly can. We're in strategic plan. That's where some of this work is going to get very interesting, where this research is going to showcase things that I'm not going to be happy about, but I'm going to be very public with what the research and what the data is saying about it. Should we have new models? Dave Shapiro was talking about new models, and my head is swimming. Should I have something more than what my traditional is? But the traditional is so good. It's evidence-based. It is changing lives. You know, do I dilute? Right, we've got a lot of questions to have. We have a lot of training. So that model that we have that you know is what we have. The question is there going to be more or different going forward? I think the answer is yes. I just don't know what that looks like. Results. Here are the results that we track. The endurance rate, already talked about that, leading the nation, and going to keep locking down on that. We track the ABCs of our little brothers and little sisters. That means attendance, behavior, and course performance in reading and math. We get that information from the school districts on every single child. So we know every quarter what is happening, and we use that data to our good. We track the 3 E's. Well, we track graduation rates. Our graduation rate with the demographic that we have is always at least 93% high school graduation rate. And in addition to that, we track the 3 E's because we now have a staff that goes all the way to 25, and that means enrollment. Are they enrolled in a post-secondary, 2, 4, or trade? Are they enlisted in the military, or are they employed? And because our vision is a living wage job by age 26. Our vision changed from high school graduation to living wage job by 26. You know we have nothing but headwinds. In 2020, when I measure it the first time, the number's not going to be good, but we're aligning everything around that vision. But 80% of the kids are on track right now to get it. It doesn't mean they'll get it. You know that. It just means they're on track. They're in one of those 3 places. The other 20% are in transition, and y'all know what transition looks like. You start, you stop, you don't know what to do, you're doing this. But we have a full team that wake up every day, and we have 100 boys and girls graduating from high school this year that will go into that Big Futures program. Going to have to hire another staff person to oversee that new caseload, but we'll have about 300 young men and women in that post-secondary, and it is living wage jobs. So that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Can I ask you to repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. What is your entity, county government, doing specifically to impact the lives of Black boys and men?
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I stayed on focus on how I answered it, listening to all the rich information. So in my role in county government, specifically with the county executive's office, one of the ways that I feel that I help the issue is by making the administration understand that Black and brown people pay taxes, and those taxes should be pushed in those areas, in our areas, and those resources are used to help enrich the lives of all in St. Louis County. So that's a daily task, and I do believe that it is a very important one. A lot of times we don't require government to report to us, but we should. And that is a job that I try to make them understand, that you're responsible to the people who pay the taxes, who allow county government to continue to function as it does. So that's one of my roles that I believe that I contribute to. The other thing, I'm going into my 5th year with this administration, and for 4 years I've gone out and raised money to send young kids, specifically young boys, to science camps, free science camps. Last year I was so proud to raise money for 10 young men and sent them to the NASA camp for them to explore space, to get out of their normal conditions in the summer. And I believe that that work is going to really, really pay off. But again, I think that if we require government to be responsible to us, if we expect government to be responsible to us, if we explore the resources that are already there for us that we're entitled to, then we can begin to pull more of those resources out into the community. I mean, there are a number of things, whether it's in workforce programs, St. Louis County has devoted quite a bit recently to its workforce program, to its training programs. I know we're going to talk about livable wages later, but there are so many things that are out there that maybe are not known about. So that's my job to make sure that they are known in the community, whether or not it's the BUD programs, the union programs that we have to revisit. Even at one time, if they were not favorable, then circle back around and let's look and see what's there to build trades, to build a skill that can carry forth into many generations, to be able to sustain ourselves. But it's those type of things. In healthcare, we partner with Christian Hospital, who is doing a tremendous job in turning healthcare around in North County for all, but in particular to service black males and black youth in programs that they have available. And even like today, I believe that today is National HIV Awareness Day. St. Louis County clinics have free testing all day long. So those are the things that we do.
So since this is the impact panel, I thought I would talk a little bit more about the St. Louis American's impact. I mentioned we have 70,000 papers we print. I didn't mention it's free for those who are visiting from out of town. Also, the website, stlamerican.com, I asked our business guy, we have 165,000 average unique visitors. We also have a local partnership with St. Louis Public Radio. I helped Sean get on St. Louis Public Radio to talk about this partnership. And we have a national partnership with HuffPost. When HuffPost started their national listening tour, partnered with local media, they started in St. Louis, partnered with the St. Louis American. They parked their listening bus on the loop. We had a real good time with them. And as to what we do, like I've been at the paper 14 years, and there's not been a week ever that we didn't publish an African-American male voice. First of all, my publisher co-writes all the editorials, so he would qualify. But every week we have a black male voice. But it's nice with this partnership to have one where we're specifically tasking them to write about specifically improving the narratives around black males. And there is something about stories that predict behavior and influence behavior. And if you start talking about how dynamic people are, you're no longer talking about them being disadvantaged or underprivileged. You're talking about them having the potential to do better. And it's so obviously true of anyone, but so of course black males as well as anyone. The other thing that's great about the partnership is that it brings new people to the newspaper. Almost everyone we've published that came to Sean or came to HomeGrown STL were new voices to us. And we thought we knew, not everyone, but we thought we knew more people than we did. And it's very exciting. Now, when I started with my friends, because newspaper guys were always like insecure, like there won't be any copy. So I asked Starsky Wilson to write, my friend to write first. Bruce Franks Jr. came in early because I knew these guys are going to come through for me. But then I sort of got in the grind of just waiting for Sean to bring all these great voices. And it's such a wide variety of people are writing. And I used to write for The Nation magazine in New York, and The Nation had this great tagline that they had the best writers who did their best work for them. And I do find that if you read a black male writer like Starsky Wilson in the St. Louis American, and you read him in the Post-Dispatch, just to mention another publication, I think you'll find what he does for us is more him, because we're kind of we're home for him and for people like Sean. So we really provide a home playing field for the black voice, and in this case, the black male voice.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. I have one question that I want to end on before we transition and trying to honor time and get us back on track. And that question is, what unique collaborative opportunities inspire you and excite you about this strategic moment, right? So we're talking about leading together. We're talking about strategic collaborative conversations that move us forward as we celebrate and imagine. What excites you as we move forward in the rest of the day?
I'll go quickly. It excites me to see a regional wraparound arms around higher ed black male college students. Those young brothers were thirsty. They were thirsty for each other. They were thirsty for leadership. They were thirsty for knowledge. And it just reinforces the reason why when you see that kind of response. It also, the collaborative energy of the membership of the initiatives. Many of them are here today. And I know they were not here last year because I was here last year. And it just kind of shows how as a region we're coming together because they really want to change the narrative around black males because we have a certain narrative that we kind of promote in this region around black males, and they are really looking to change that. It excites me when our labor department says we had like double the number of people come out in -6-degree temperature when we had openings and enrollment for the BUD program, which is Building Union Diversity. And that is, if anyone doesn't know about them, Roz and Sonia, raise your hand. You're in here. I know you are. They're up. Seek them out because that is an on-ramp. See, what we have to do is get the on-ramps together and start working better together. We are about to launch with some regional partners a regional racial equity indicators dashboard, and it's totally aligned with the Ferguson Commission calls to action. I heard Reverend Starsky say that's a fine piece of work. I've been around the country. No other city has a Ferguson Commission report. So when we decided how to show up and what could United Way do, no more dialogue, no more. We're going to do the darn thing. See, I almost said something. We're going to do the darn thing. Let's measure and keep the region accountable to what this commission has said, at least in its signature cause, is important. That excites me. Accountability. I'm United Way. Accountability excites me. Demonstrated accountability really takes me over the edge. And so I think we are at a unique moment right now. We have a whole lot of energy that's intersecting, and we're still coming back to the summits. I hope people will still be here at 2:30. I counted the people who were here last year at the end versus the people who were here the first year at the end. I said, Dr. Sean Joe, we doing something here because it was more people. So y'all keep leaning in. That's what excites me because the baton is about to be passed. You know, some of us have been in this lane for a while, and so we're about to pass the baton. And what we said we were going to do, we tried, and we got in each other's way a lot of times. Y'all can't do that. Don't do that St. Louis thing. Don't do that St. Louis thing and do the work.
I just quickly want to piggyback off of what Ray said, and the unique opportunity is capturing all the creative energy in the room, all of the intelligence and the knowledge. We've been operating in silos, kind of doing the same thing sometimes and duplicating efforts when we really could just come together and pool our efforts and accomplish a greater good. So that's what's unique about this. I know that there are so many agencies, nonprofits, government, all are represented here today. And if we begin to make sure that we don't do the St. Louis thing, and many know what you're talking about is the fact that we keep so separate one from another and, you know, are so concerned about who will get the credit that we miss the mark in what it is that we need to accomplish. Oh, you're doing a Nancy Pelosi on me. I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna ask for this. I'm gonna ask for specifically your help with something, but I've got to create the space for it to happen, and then I'm going to need Dr. Sean Joe to make sure you get the information about how to show up for this. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'm white, and I'm about 56, and I'm a Southerner, and that has a lot of pluses and it has some minuses. I am not going to transform Big Brothers Big Sisters for black boys without black men. So I, as the leader, have taken it as far as I can take it. And then there's going to have to be you have to show up and look at this data and help us understand and reinvent us. There's a lot that we're doing right. There is so much more to do better. We don't understand. We don't know. We don't know how to sequence it. Like I said, we have 6,000 people a day. If someone said, you need to go do this one training, everybody needs to be trained. I don't know how I would get 1,800 people trained and keep it going. So, I mean, there's a scale problem here. But I will create the space. I will work back with Dr. Shanjo to get the invitation out to say, if you want to help reinvent us, we're open, we're not afraid. I'm not going to be ashamed, but there's going to be some data that I'm just going to go, oh my God, I don't like this data, but we're going to just show it, and you're going to help us, hopefully, join us and create that space and make us better. And because you're already in a room because you're committed to Black boys, and we need you. So, and by the way, if you want to volunteer, you can do that too to be a big brother. But I need you in the space to reinvent the organization. So, thank you.
So what the collaboration with HomeGrown STL does for the St. Louis American is it focuses a little bit our vision, which hasn't changed. We had the same vision when I got there. I wouldn't want to change it. Again, it's to inform, educate, empower, and protect the Black community. Our publisher's presumption, and this is his sell to corporate St. Louis, most of our advertising support are white-owned or white-directed corporations who really don't need the eyeballs of our readers, but it's a kind of maybe guilt money for them or something like that, or they're trying to support an institution that they see as trying to improve the community, which I think is hopefully really what it is. And his sell to them is Dr. Suggs' sell to corporate St. Louis is always the unrealized potential in this community is what's holding your region back. You can't have this many Black people in a region performing this far below the standard of the white community and expect your region to go anywhere. And that's definitely true, and that's why we are so committed to the public schools in particular. We have the largest newspapers and education program in the state of Missouri, the largest Black-owned newspaper ever to have an NIE program. And what that means is public schools get our newspaper for free. Thousands and thousands and thousands of our public school kids get our newspaper. And we have pages of the newspaper edited just for them, just for youth. Yes, selfishly, we're trying to train people to read newspapers because we want to stay in business, but also we want to train people to read. And without literacy, where are you really going to be? And I might say this, I was at the New York Times when Suggs recruited me for the American, and I've changed my editorial standards 0, because my presumption is if you read a newspaper, you're a reader. And if you can read, we write for people who know how to read. And that's really one size fits all. The New York Times, the St. Louis American, they shouldn't have any different editorial standard. Because if you can read a newspaper, you can read.
Thank you. Okay, I'm getting close to getting us back on time, but I do want to make sure that I leave some space for any questions that you all may have. Microphone. Thank you.
Good morning. This is for Miss Rebecca. You said monthly you Big Brothers Big Sisters turn away 150 to 200 Black or brown boys. So the question I have is there any resources given to those 150 to 200 Black boys for different agencies or entities that can help them?
Yes, so that number is between 100 and 150, and so fine. But yes, when those calls come in, and just so you know, how do you decide what you turn away? It's on a zip code, right? So if in a zip code we have 100 boys waiting in that zip code, adding another 200 boys. So it's levers being pulled all the time. So we know the zip code coming in. We certainly know they're calling for a mentor. So we're able to have the conversation that says, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried this? I mean, Boys and Girls Club is like, you've got a Boys and Girls Club. Have you been going to your Boys and Girls Club? But the truth of the matter is exactly what they're looking for doesn't easily exist, or we don't know it exists. So we'd love to refer, but what they're looking for is that mentor, is that man, and so we can refer them. But we know there are other mentoring programs out there. We just don't know maybe who they are and could they take them. So yes, there is referrals, but I wouldn't say, I can check the box and say, yeah, we gave them a referral, but I don't know that that helped them.
Good point. Okay, we have a question here.
Good morning. My question is actually for Chris King from The American.
I'm curious. I enjoy what you said about giving credence and a stage to black male voices. My question is, how many of those voices are in this demographic that we've been speaking about all day? So that 18 to 25, younger. Are you guys telling the stories of young black men as well, allowing them to let their voices be heard and give inspiration to others sorry, I'm a little sick, guys, but give inspiration to others, who are in that same situation? Because I'm here as a young black man, and I look out and I see there are some people of my demographic here, but there's definitely not enough, in my opinion, and part of that, I think, is just a relatability type of thing where, if young black men see other young black men getting involved and telling their stories and getting supported and telling those stories, we'll get more of them here, because they feel like they're represented, they feel like they're supported. And I mean, let's be honest, everybody wants to be with somebody that looks like them or is in that same age range, so I think the more people that are heard, the more young black men we get involved, and better involvement obviously creates progress.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. This week, today's paper is a young man who's in Umsel. I believe he's under 25. Last week, it's a young man who I believe is in high school, so he's under 18. I think on average, we've had pretty wide range of ages, Sean. And we're open for business, so why don't you write something and share it with Sean and me? I've got a stack of business cards in my wallet, so I'll serve young black males first today.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yes.
Just a little, no, we're closing out. So it's open for anyone to offer a submission. And we make that plain. And I also want to make sure that we say a little bit about the strategy. So this group is primarily those who are in a profession of trying to work and support young black males. We have to create the space for young black males to have their space to lead in the way they want to lead as part of how do they help themselves. So this first space is about the organizations and professionals, but then you're right. You got to create the space for young black males to be able to lead in this movement themselves. So that's going to be another phase of what we have to figure out. And we have to figure that out together. So I wanted to do that because I know we have to close. I'm going to go back to Risa so she can close it out with the panel.
I just want to give a big round of applause and thank you to our panelists that served today.